Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live with the Pricing Lady. I'm Janine Liston, your hostess. This show is all about helping small businesses build better pricing strategies so they can have sustainably profitable businesses for the long term. We work on setting your prices, communicating prices so that you can profitable businesses for the long term. Sorry. We work on setting your Well, that's live for you, ladies and gentlemen. My phone was not switched off, and now it is. There we go. Let's start again. So welcome once again. This show is helping you to charge your customers for the value that you provide. That was the last part of that statement. So welcome, everyone. In this episode today, we're going to take a look at how do I know when to change my prices? This is a question I get from clients all the time. One of the really interesting things I find about when people ask me this question is they actually already have a sneaking suspicion they need to change their prices, but they are so afraid of losing even one customer that they simply don't even want to try. So they're turning to me to tell them, yep, you have to do it. What I like to do with my clients is make sure that they understand why to do it and how to do about it in a way that isn't going to rock the boat too much. Because sometimes, let's face it, we do want to rock the boat, but not all the time. However, in this video, we're going to really focus on about 10 signs, if you will. I'm looking at my notes here, about 10 signs that will help cue you in that it's actually time to take in those steps towards changing your prices. Okay, let's start with the really obvious thing at first. Now, what I set up or help my clients set up is a process for price reviews. This is usually yearly price reviews, not always, but most of the time it is. So the first sign is that you've done your price review, and as a result of that, you see that there are changes to be made. Now, this might seem kind of obvious, but I wanted to point it out and make sure it was the number one point here, because actually everything else I'm going to talk about, if you're doing your yearly price review or a regular price review, for some of you that may be more or less often, then this price review will tell you when to do it and how to go about doing it. So that's why I wanted to make sure here. So when you're doing those price reviews, that will give you a very clear sign what to do. So number 2, you're positioned wrongly. So you've done a value map, you've had a look at where you're positioned, price versus value compared to the competition in the market, and you realize that you're not in the right place. Either your positioning isn't aligned with your brand, it's not aligned with your target customers. It can also be misaligned with your business in general. But you've done that work and you've seen that you are not positioned correctly, and therefore that you need to make an adjustment for that. Next, you haven't changed prices in a really long time. Now, how can I know that you need to change them just because you haven't done it? Well, here's a little trick, or trick is maybe not the right word, but one thing that I think is really important for you to understand is that if you're not changing prices, increasing prices generally on a yearly basis, then you're actually granting your customers a discount every year. Why do I say that? I say that because usually inflation is increasing every year, by definition, right? And therefore that means your costs to run your business and your costs of living have also increased. So effectively, and so has that for your customers, by the way, and effectively that means that your prices have dropped by the amount of inflation. So if you haven't raised prices or changed prices in a long time, then chances are it's time to take a look at doing that and to do it, actually. So next, no one is buying. Now, this is a tricky one. Just because people aren't buying something doesn't necessarily mean the price is wrong. So if you see that people aren't buying something, you first need to investigate, do I have the right product or offer for the target customer group I'm trying to reach? Do I understand the value of that? Do those customers understand the value of that? Because if they don't understand the value, then of course they're not going to see the price as suitable. So once you've checked all those things and all those things have gotten a nice green check mark as yes, they're okay, then you would think about, okay, maybe the price needs to be adjusted. Next, customers are saying you are not charging enough. I know this one always makes me smile, because if a customer tells you you're not charging enough, wouldn't you think then that you would go ahead and do it? Well, time and again, clients come to me and they say, well, I should probably change my prices. And I ask, well, why do you think that? And they say, oh, my customers are telling me I'm not charging enough. And yet they're still so afraid of losing just one customer that they can't take that step forward. And this is really interesting. And so I want to share with you, there's a tool that I have. If you go to JanineListon.com, pricing tools, I may even have the link here for you. Yes, I do. If you go here, there is a tool there called the price change calculator. And when you access the price change calculator, you can actually calculate, if I drop the price of my product by this much, how much more volume do I need? For most businesses, actually increasing prices slightly, because you can also do the opposite with the tool. You can see how much volume you can lose with certain price increases. But for most people, charging a bit more and losing a couple of clients may actually make you more profitable. Okay, so this is important. If your customers are telling you that you're not charging enough, then chances are you are not, and it's time to change those prices. Have a look at that tool the next time you think about changing prices. It'll help you understand the price volume trade-off. Next, you are feeling resentful. So you're working your tail end off and you feel like, gosh, I'm doing so much work and these people aren't paying me much. Now, first of all, it's not their fault, it's yours. Yeah, I'm going to be brutally honest with you here. It's absolutely your responsibility to make sure that you're getting paid what you think is a fair exchange for value. So you can't really blame your customers for that. That is fully within your remit or your responsibility. But if you're feeling that way, if you really start to feel that resentment, then you need to take a step back and look at either how you're working and or how you're setting your prices, because one of those two things is off. Next, you're working really hard, but you're not earning enough money. Yeah, so these two might go hand in hand. But I know people who work so much harder than others, and they still can't seem to even make enough money to support themselves and their families. And this is a big problem. This is really interesting. So last week I had Joy Foster from Tech Pixies here on the show, and we were talking about undervaluing ourselves and how important that is when you start a new business, to be really careful, because if you're not earning enough at the beginning, then you're not going to have the money to reinvest in the business later. Right? And that's a super important thing. So again, if you're not earning enough profit off of this and you're working too hard, then something is not aligned with your pricing and the value you're delivering. Next, we have new customers. So if you have new customers in your business, chances are you might actually need to have different prices. Now, by new customers, I don't mean people in the same target group, but let's say you decided to target small businesses first and then expand that. So businesses, 50 people or less, let's say. And then now you're starting to get some momentum there and you've decided to expand that, and you've started to get customers whose businesses have, say, 1,000 or more people. Well, that might actually be a different target group for you. Not only might your prices need to change, but your offers might need to change as well. Next, your offer changes. So if your offer is changing, then of course your prices are going to be adjusting. And this can be different things. So let's say you're in retail. Maybe you have new inventory coming in. So you have new offers. Maybe they're just updates of what you were offering before, or maybe they're better versions of that or something completely different. But that may mean that you need to adjust prices on the old ones in order to bring in the new inventory and get rid of the old inventory. So again, new products or new offers can also indicate that it's time to change your prices. Those are, I'm just checking my notes to make sure. So those are really the main reasons. Now there's other things that can come into play here that aren't, that are atypical. That can be like regulatory requirements. So I have some clients who are working in the healthcare and pharma space. They have regulatory requirements, and those can influence what they do in their business. That can change who they target, what they're offering, and the prices that they offer. Sometimes there can be legal changes that can have an influence on your pricing, as well as your cost structure. Oh, I missed that one. If your cost structure changes, then maybe your prices need to change as well. So all of these things are a part of the thought process. And one thing that I want you to think about as I bring this all together is that all of these things that I've mentioned here are actually the things that you use in order to set your prices, right? So these are the things that you're looking at when you're setting your prices. And as those things change, then the things you base your prices on will change. So I see Heather here has written this. Hi, Heather, if you're still with us, thanks for joining. I put my prices up for the client that was demanding and the most hassle. Yes, that's a strategy that you can use, of course, for clients that you think are going to be, require more effort and handling from your side, let's put it that way. Then, of course, the value that you give them is different than you might give someone else, and therefore you might adjust the prices for that. That's true. So you were resentful, and then they accepted the new price and sent more work. Yes. So I'm not going to read the whole thing here. I think that people who are watching can see it in the comments. But what's interesting is that, yes, we have to be very clear when we give prices, especially when it comes to project type work like you might be doing, and define very clear boundaries with customers up front so that we don't have that creep in terms of scope or who's doing what work and how. And I totally agree with you. Sometimes that can be a minefield to manage. But one thing to keep in mind, and we all know this, that we hate to admit it to ourselves, not every customer is a good customer. And sometimes the best way to serve the customer and yourself is to steer them to work with someone else. Hopefully that's also good for the third party that you steer them to. So thanks for your question, your comment there, Heather. So one other thing I want to talk about before we get going is the following. People ask me, well, how often should I do a review of my pricing? And when it comes to pricing reviews, most companies should, /are, if you're not, you should be reviewing them at least once a year. But there are a few industries where there's an exception to that. So some can, usually most won't do it less often, although I'm sure there's some out there are, but there are several industries where they might do it more frequently. If you think of the travel industry, that's one area where they do pricing, what we call dynamic pricing, where it's changing on a daily basis, maybe even multiple times a day. Now, are they doing a price review every single day? Well, you could question that, because what they actually do is they set prices usually once or twice a year, and then they have a system of algorithms that actually looks for what needs to be changed and makes adjustments for them. But that's happening on a daily, with hotels, sometimes a weekly basis. It's really being managed sort of real time on demand. Then if you look at the retail business, so online and offline, you'll see when there's inventory, sometimes inventory fluctuates on a monthly basis. Sometimes it's seasonal. So it can be, based on summer, winter, spring, and fall. I know I said those out of order, but I got all four in there. So it can be seasonal like that. It can also be based on, the holidays that you celebrate in your country or your region. So for example, in the US, some of the retail outlets, they have a sale going on every single week. And so in order to keep inventory moving, they're constantly adjusting prices on weekly and monthly basis. But again, these are exceptions. For most of you out there who are watching this, you will be adjusting your prices more or less on a yearly basis, or at the very least, you're going to be reviewing them, even though you might not be changing them. That's what I wanted to talk to you about today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I've shed some light here on how you know when to change your prices. These are the same principles I've applied in the companies that I've worked for and in my own business. So I encourage you to set up your own strategy for how you're going to review your prices each and every year. And when it's time to do it, don't worry about it. There are ways to implement those price changes that won't rock the boat. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. Of course, if you're in that time period where you're thinking about what am I going to do with my prices next year, I would love to be able to help you with that. So go ahead and book that discovery call with me, JanineListon.com/discovery call, and we can talk about how I can help you with your own pricing for next year, or any other questions, of course, that you have about your pricing. So go ahead and book that call and we can talk about how we can work together. That's all for today, folks. I wish you all the best. Have a great day. And as always, enjoy pricing, everyone.